Hey BookTube! I am the Book Mage, welcome to my channel, and to today's video. So I have a couple times in the past talked about my favourite upcoming releases and anticipated reads for the year, and I didn't really feel like doing that this year, mainly because of a couple of those past years. Some of those books I never bought, I never picked up, they just sort of passed me by. I don't know whether my opinions changed or if I just forgot. So I thought, rather than giving you a list of most anticipated books that I then might not ever end up featuring on this channel again, I thought what I would do this time, which is a little bit more committed, is to tell you the books that I have pre-ordered for this year. Not even just for this year, actually just for in perpetuity, which in terms of publishing kind of means that some of these books may come out in 2024 or beyond, but we'll see. Either way, I've got them pre-ordered. And I will maybe try and put a visual and maybe a release date, if there is one, for the books that I'm mentioning here, just because obviously I've got nothing to hold up because they're still on their way. So okay, so the first book I have pre-ordered is A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. So this is a prequel to her previously standalone novel The Priory of the Orange Tree, which I loved. It is a book about magic and dragons and it's fantastic. This one I think is actually set maybe a couple hundred years prior to the events of Priory of the Orange Tree. You do not have to have read one to read the other, you can just read them each as their own standalone. I really love this world, I really love the writing style that Samantha Shannon uses for this series. I love the world building, I love the dragons. I've talked about Priory quite a lot on my channel before already, and I do kind of want to go into this new one as blind as possible. It's got dragons, it's got magic, that's all I need to know. This is on my pre-orders, for sure. This is kind of my most anticipated book of this year, maybe, I think, and also it's gorgeous. I should have said as well, these are in no particular order, they're not in release order or anything, I don't think. But Priory does come out pretty soon, I think towards the end of February. The second book I have pre-ordered, which I have actually mentioned before, is The Tyranny of Faith by Richard Swan. So this book is also part of a series. This is a direct sequel to The Justice of Kings, which is a book that I was sent as part of my Goldsboro fantasy and sci-fi subscription, and I read it quite recently and I really enjoyed it. I liked it enough that I decided I was definitely going to continue with this series, and so I pre-ordered this. In the first book you're following one of the Emperor's Justices, which is basically a kind of magical lone law enforcement type position. They kind of have magical powers that only their order has that helps them do their job, and he's also accompanied by his assistant who's also training to become a justice, and it's kind of this sort of grim kind of fantasy murder mystery, but there's a lot more going on than that, and I appreciate the mystery aspect of this book, but it's definitely going places and I want to see the places that it goes in the second book. Definitely one that you can expect to see on my shelves when it eventually releases. The next book I have pre-ordered I think comes out very soon as well, and that is Vampire Weekend by Mike Chen. Now, one of my goals for this year is to read more vampire literature, so I have been looking into a lot more books about vampires or featuring vampires, and this was one of the ones that caught my attention. It's not traditionally the kind of vampire book that I would normally like to read, but I am going to give it a chance. So this, I believe, follows a vampire called Louise, and in this world vampires can't they can't fly, they can't turn into bats or anything like that. She has spent several decades following around rock and metal bands and things, which is the part that interested me, especially after I enjoyed Grady Hendrix's We Sold Our Souls. I definitely want to give another alternative music scene book another chance. And this one also has vampires, which is an extra bonus. So that is the part that drew me in. I believe the plot has something to do with one of her estranged family members turning up and also being really into music and maybe asking some sort of favour. And it doesn't say what it is. I guess it's gonna have repercussions or something. I don't know. It's gonna be vampire shenanigans in the alt music scene. I'm gonna pre-order this. I did pre-order this, in fact, and I'm pretty sure it comes out very soon, which means that I may or may not be reading it pretty soon, but this might be one of the books that I end up getting to this year as part of my big push to read vampire books, so definitely one that I was not gonna pass up. Okay, the fourth book I have pre-ordered is The Sword Defiant by Gareth Hanrahan. You all know why I have this pre-ordered. Look, Gareth Hanrahan at the moment is kind of an auto by author for me, and I know that's kind of weird to say because this is only the second series he's come out with. The reason I pre-ordered this is because his debut series, The Black Iron Legacy, I think that's what it's called, I always get it slightly wrong. That is one of my favourite fantasy series ever. The vibes are kind of Bloodborne meets Dishonored meets Dungeons and Dragons, big dark theological backstabby kind of fantasy. It's great. I adore his first series. I have only read the first 2 books. I still need to finish that finale, but I really like the way he writes. I like his characters, I like his stories, I like his settings. So when I heard that he was coming out with a new series, you know I pre-ordered that bitch straight into my cart. Immediate checkout. This one, I remember, it's something to do with like magical, possibly sentient / living weapons, which gives me maybe like a Soul Eater type vibe. I think the basic premise is the main character is someone who helped, along with like his like band of adventurers and fellow warriors, saved the world from like a dark lord with these magical weapons many years ago. They took him down, they took his weapons, they took his fortress, and now many years later something else is happening that means that the main character needs to like go and gather his friends once again to like take on either another big bad or maybe the same big bad, I honestly don't know. And a bit in the vibe of kind of like Kings of the Wild, of like now more aged warriors going like back out for maybe like kind of like a final last stand. God, I hope it's like a final last stand. I am just realizing that I might get some like prime sad old men energy in this book, which is like, we're not going to go into it, but like I like that in books. And I do think I recall the synopsis saying that, you know, he's going back out again to like slay monsters, but unfortunately some of his former friends may also now be some of those monsters. So you know I had to get this. Yeah, super looking forward to this. I will definitely finish Gareth Hammerhand's other series before I start this. I'm not entirely sure when this comes out. It'll be on the screen somewhere, so I don't know, but you guys do. But I would hopefully like to read it maybe around whatever this date says here. Hopefully it's not the end of January, because if it is, I'm so screwed. But otherwise, okay, yeah, getting on to my next book. The next book that I have pre-ordered is the new Martha Wells book. I think it is called The Witch King. And I pre-ordered this because, one, it's a fantasy, but 2, Martha Wells wrote the Murderbot Diaries, and those are some books that I really like. They're very like heavily character driven, they're very humorous, funny, I love them. I've started reading them again this year. I'm enjoying continuing this series so much, and I'm hoping that this book will have some of the things that I like from the Murderbot Diaries, but in a fantasy setting, which is even more my thing. So I believe the basic premise for this is, I think some sort of like, maybe like a demon or a spirit or something is awakened when a not very experienced mage tries to like interact with them in some way. And I think the demon / spirit / thing, I forget what the synopsis called it. This is honestly the most I've ever known about synopses in a video, and I still don't know what I'm talking about. So, but I think that they don't know why they were like bound or assassinated or whatever. They don't really know, like, I think maybe like how much time has passed, how the world has changed. I think there are some very confusing things going on with an order that sort of concerns this demon thing, and they're out for answers. It's got demony things / spirits, it's got a mage, it's a fantasy world, and it's written by an author that I really like. So into my basket it went, out of my wallet flew my money, and here we are. Book number 6 on my list is a book that I've been talking about for years, for literal years. This book is still not out yet. I think I've been talking about this book since 2019, maybe 2020. I think I thought this book was going to come out in 2020. It is Outlaw Empire by Nicholas Eames. Now, fun fact, I know I have this book pre-ordered because it shows up in my pre-orders. However, I have searched this book on Amazon, on Waterstones, on Blackwell's. I can't find any record of it existing. If you search it, you can't find it. I can view the page if I go through my orders, but that's it. And I cannot find any product details. However, this is the 3rd book in the Banned series. So book 1 was Kings of the Wild, and book 2 was Bloody Rose. This is book 3. I have no idea what the plot is going to be, but I know that this world is basically set in a world where bands of adventurers are lauded in the same way that like famous groups of like rock musicians are like famed and adored in our world. So instead of going out and playing like a big stage arena and like putting on a musical show, they will go out to arenas or like go out to towns or out into the wilderness and like gain fame and fans by fighting like giant monsters. It is a pretty like simple, easygoing kind of fantasy with some very sort of like, it flips between like tongue-in-cheek humour and like dad jokes, but in a way that I have enjoyed. So while it's not the most groundbreaking, I found the 1st and 2nd book quite fun, easygoing reads, and I really enjoyed them. And I'm hoping that will be the case for book 3, if it ever comes out. As I've said, this has been on like my anticipated releases list, I think for like 2020's releases and maybe 2021's releases, and it didn't come out in 2022. I think the last thing I saw, it was like listed as releasing in March 2024, but the fact that the pre-orders page has disappeared, at least when I checked, maybe not a good sign, but like, the point is, regardless of when it comes out, I do have it pre-ordered. Yeah, if it ever comes out, I'll let you know if I get a copy. And the last book that I'm going to talk about today that I have pre-ordered is, look, this one's kind of awkward. It's the second Empire of the Vampire book by J. Kristoff. The reason this is awkward is because for like 2 years I said how much Empire of the Vampire was like my most anticipated book ever and potentially could be my favourite book of all time because it takes fantasy and vampires and like it makes them kiss. Like it was gonna have everything I wanted in a book. Vampires are my favourite thing, and vampires are never in high fantasy. Video games and Dungeons and Dragons have spoiled me because vampires are always in fantasy. Why is it that all fantasy worlds have like werewolves and spirits and the undead? They never fucking have vampires. Oh my god, just let them, please, just let me have high fantasy vampires, I'm begging you. And please don't let them be written by J. Kristoff. Having said that, you might wonder why I have this pre-ordered. Basically, I was so middle of the road about the first book in the series. I will not spoil anything, but I expected it to be a 5-star read. I think I gave it like a 3 stars in the end. I loved some of the world building. I loved a lot of like the early parts of the book before it became like a massive slog to get through and nonsensical and just, oh, it hurts. Some of it I really liked. Some of it, oh my god, did I hate. So I've decided it's about a 3 stars for me. Now I have this book pre-ordered because I need to know. Oh my god, I need to know. Is it gonna get better? Or is it shit? Is it absolute utter garbage? I need to know. I need to know, and I need to shout from the rooftops the minute I get this book. It's gonna be an experience, that's all I know, and either it's gonna be fantastic or you're gonna see me ranting about it for weeks. Basically, the only things I want from this book are no more pretending that things that we've known since very early on are apparently big reveals. No more J. Kristoff doing sassy, talking band of misfits who have no purpose other than to just be there and say things, just so that J. Kristoff can be like, look how witty I can make my dialogue. Who are these people? Who are they? If that's in there, like, I'm gonna riot. But if this book has like more good goth vibes and like not the super over the top kind of meh, and if it goes like more heavily into like the vampires and like the angst, less pissing about, then maybe I could love this. We'll see. I don't want to say the first book may have teething issues because that's a whole pun that I don't want to get into. All I'm gonna say is I've pre-ordered this because I can't not know. I hope so much that I love this book. I hope so much that this series gets amazing. I hope, because like it could happen. It could happen. Or we're just gonna leave that there. So thanks so much for joining me. Oh, I'm in a weird mood today. If you made it this far, leave me this "my money is flying away" emoji because it is accurate. Do also let me know what pre-orders like you guys are placing. What books have you got like ready and waiting to go the second they release, and are any of them the same as the books that I have pre-ordered? Also, totally random aside, but like, have you noticed that like most of like the stack is gone? If you don't know what the stack is, like, don't worry yourselves. Pretend it never happened, it's fine. But like, if you know, like, it's kind of small now. Anyway, with that said, I am going to go. I have so much to do, and as you can guess, much of it is reading. But once again, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and perhaps I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!